we're going to talk about 3 opportunities that I'm seeing in the medium-term rental space, and we'll talk about what those look like. My name is Erin Spradlin. I co-own Erin and James Real Estate. We are based out of Colorado Springs and Denver, and those are primarily the cities that we work in. We also work in the metro areas around both of those cities. We work with buyers, sellers, and investors, and with those investors, they're typically in the medium-term or short-term space. We've done a lot of research on the rules and really honed in on what works best and where works best. If you are enjoying this content, there's way more content. We have a podcast, we have a website, we have TikTok, we have Instagram. I will link to all of those below. I also do some consulting that has come out of these videos. Sometimes people are asking me, if they can have me specifically look at their listing or answer questions for them. More than happy to do that. It's just $100 for a half an hour to an hour call. You can send me questions ahead of time, or you can just pick my brain on whatever. I'm starting to get a lot of requests for it, so I'm really happy to do it. Let me know, email me. Again, I'll have that link below, and it's just an email and we can set up a time. Just note those times are gonna be Mountain Standard Times. Watch these videos at all. If you are looking for just a guide to medium-term rentals, something that has everything in one place, it's a lot of what I have in these videos, but there's checklists, there's notes on how to do a lease, notes to think about how your tenants, some of the research that I thought about that led me to want to write this book and why I think that this trend is going to be so popular. It's called American Nomads. It's on Amazon. If you Google my name, Erin Spradlin, it will come up. You will love it, hopefully. It's in Kindle and paperback. And if you've already done it, I appreciate it so much. I'd also love a review on Amazon. That's super helpful too. Okay, so what are these 3 different opportunities? I will just give it away up top and then we'll talk about each one. So the first opportunity are cities that will pay you to move there as a remote worker. Now, you may be the landlord to remote workers and you might be thinking, how is that relevant to me? Well, those remote workers that are coming into these states or cities are going to need somewhere to live. You could be the place for them to live. So that's number 1. Number 2 is where traveling nurses are going to be most in demand in the future, currently right now and in the future. So which cities, that should help guide you on where you want to be investing. On the flip side of that, we'll talk about where traveling nurses are not very in demand. So states to avoid. And then finally, we'll talk about the co-working space and the rent by room. Co-working space is very interesting to me, very interested in that trend, because as much as I think people love remote work, I love remote work, but I can tell you as someone that's been in remote work for a long time, it can be kind of isolating and lonely. When I was going to self-employment meetups and stuff, this was a common theme amongst the group. So I think co-working spaces, you could really see an explosion of that. And I think rent by the room too. It's odd, but I think people might actually be trending back toward having roommates or something if the remote work trend explodes, and I think it will. I think it's a no-brainer. So I think thinking about housing and business opportunities where you're creating community and bringing people together could be very lucrative in the future. Okay, so let's talk about cities that will pay you to move there. I talk about this in the book. I have incredible respect and admiration for the people out of Tulsa they're really the first city that I've heard about this, and they're kind of the ones that made it popular. And then when COVID hit, a ton of other people were doing it. But basically, Tulsa offered a $10,000 stipend for people to come in and buy a house if they would work in Tulsa for a year. And the reason why they did that is because they wanted that tech company money. They knew that tech company workers and remote workers are high earning, they have high salaries, and so they felt like if they could get them to move to Tulsa, spend that money for a year, they believe that they might actually want to live there. But also, even if they don't, they've spent all that money and they've had that extra income for a while. So Tulsa really should get the credit for being the geniuses behind this. I feel like, I don't know, there was somebody in a marketing meeting that had this idea. I think it is so smart, and obviously a lot of other people do too, because a lot of cities have copied it. So I think it's important to pay attention to these cities because they really are actively going after remote workers because they know they have this money, and you could be the landlord that can provide housing for them. The rub on this though is that if these cities are trying to find ways to bring workers in, they might not be the hottest cities or the most desirable areas. So I would say double check the program and its success, and also hopefully look for hospitals or colleges or something else that exists in the city that needs housing for some reason. So maybe don't do it just off of these, but know that these exist and pay attention to these areas. See if there's a second industry that also makes them attractive. So this came out of a Zillow article that was produced in October of 2022. Paducah, Kentucky was listed as number 1. Shoals, Alabama is number 2. Rochester, New York, or I should say Greater Rochester, New York. West Lafayette, Indiana was 4. Tulsa, Oklahoma was 5th. 6 was Southwest Michigan, and 7 is just the entire state of West Virginia. I imagine it's different communities within those states. Side note, I've heard West Virginia is very beautiful. I haven't spent any time there. I just got back from Tennessee. That was beautiful. Okay, Natchez, Mississippi, Bemidji, Minnesota, and Topeka, Kansas. It's like they put together a list of very hard to pronounce cities that would make me feel self-conscious in this video. So congratulations, Zillow. But anyways, all of those would be opportunities where you could go and look and see how good the program is, how much investment or buy-in, not investment, but like how much buy-in, are remote workers doing it? Has it been successful? Again, I know the Tulsa program has been extremely successful. I'm not as sure about the rest of these. I kind of like Rochester, New York, because I think there's other reasons to be there. I think Minnesota, if it's anywhere close to the Twin Cities, I think we're seeing a lot of growth in Minnesota as well. So both of those are quite interesting to me. Again, it kind of doesn't matter. Sometimes people will come in and say, well, I don't understand why someone would live there. And it's like, it doesn't matter because the numbers say that someone would live there. AirDNA says that people come in all the time. So do Rentometer, and these are the numbers. And also, it doesn't matter what I think about it either, because there's a third-party resource saying it does or does not work. So anyways, I think look at these places and then look for a second industry or run your numbers against it and see how they do. Opportunity number 1. Opportunity 2 is areas, states that are short on nurses. So these are large states, no surprise here: California, Texas, New Jersey, South Carolina, Alaska. I think Texas could be very interesting because of what's happening with abortion. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but they may continue to have nursing shortages or medical shortages based off of that. But it's a lot of the big, California, Texas, New Jersey, all big cities with all big states with big populations, and then South Carolina and Alaska. So these are all investment opportunities around the hospitals to find spaces that would accommodate these traveling nurses. On the flip side of that, places that you want to avoid because there's more nurses than there is demand are Florida, Ohio, Virginia, New York, Missouri. James is from Missouri, and they have too many nurses, not enough demand. So not necessarily a great place to invest. Avoid there. Just quickly on this, Furnish Finder has a really good program where you can look up the demand of your area or the area that you're thinking about investing. You don't need to log in, you don't need to do anything. You just go to furnishfinder.com, scroll down, and there's like a link where you can put in your city and it'll tell you. Similarly, it has a stipend calculator. The stipend calculator is a little misleading because it's not necessarily what the nurses make. It is different tiers and how much demand those different tiers have. So still really useful, but I'm not sure that I would call it a stipend. And then finally, rent by the room and co-working spaces. So as I said at the top of this video, I'm interested in spaces that are going to bring together community or create opportunities for socializing, because I do think remote work is going to become more and more popular, and I think people love it. They don't want to go back on it. I feel that way. But at the same time, work is a major way to socialize. In fact, the studies that I'm seeing are saying that younger people are actually more resistant to do remote work than older people. And they think that a big part of that is because they are used to socializing at work. So for that reason, I think that spaces that create socializing opportunities are going to be moneymakers in the future. So co-working space would be one of these. I've never done anything like that. None of my clients have. So I can't necessarily speak to that, but I just think business opportunities, or if you're thinking about starting a small business, I think that that could be a very hot market in the future. And then the second is rent by the room. So rent by the room is similar to medium-term rentals in that you furnish the place. So you put in the bed, you put in the second screen, you put in the desk, etc. But then you were just renting out that room. You're renting out different rooms. So if you had a 4-bedroom place, you'd have 4 different leases with 4 different individuals, and they would come and go different schedules. Come and go with different schedules. I actually think that there's money to be made with this. Potentially more money than a medium term, just a straight up medium term rental where you're renting to one group and having them all pay you. However, it is also more management of your tenants and more work. So for that reason, I avoid it. But I definitely know some people that are happy with this model, especially if you're close to a college or a military base. I think this is a really good option. And I know the people that I know that are doing it close to a military base and having a lot of luck with it. So rent by the room is absolutely interesting to me, as is the co-working space. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for hanging with me. Again, if you want consulting or more content, links,